Hello, I'm Gabrielle Ben Abdallah, and I am a PhD candidate in the Department of Human-Centered Design and Engineering at the University of Washington. And today I will talk about slanted speculations, material encounters with algorithmic bias. So the projects presented in this pictorial stemmed out of a course that explored the topic of bias in artificial intelligence from a material perspective. The projects and reflections of the authors were also documented on the online platform on thebiasthinking.com, which I encourage you to visit if you're interested in speculative approaches to bias in AI. People encounter AI bias daily, for instance, through the algorithmic curation of content on social media platforms, streaming services, when sending out a resume to a company which rely on software to triage candidates, or in financial scenarios like direct lending where AI determines the credit score of an applicant. But in all of these scenarios, what is meant by bias can be hard to pin down. As designers, some of us grapple with digital applications that are biased against us. Others of us develop those biased applications, and most of us contribute to systems that perpetuate the very bias we try to design away. Bias is widely defined as unfair prejudice against a person or group, but how that manifests can be subtle or manifold, often systemic, and therefore difficult to grasp and use. When considered in a material context, however, bias refers to the direction diagonal to the weave of a fabric. When we cut on the bias in textile, we can change the way the fabric behaves, giving the material more softness and elasticity, creating drapery and movement in the way the fabric falls. The project presented in this pictorial put material bias in conversation with cultural bias, using textile as a metaphor. Through these projects, we develop a slanted approach to speculative practice, which we call slanted speculation, where speculative design tends to ask what-if questions. Slanted speculation tend to emphasize questions of yes and. The projects presented here do not outline new machine learning systems, but instead use them to create new and different orientations, oblique perspectives on computational and bias encounters. This research builds on the work of historian Marisa Fuentes and English scholar Linda Brodkey. In this presentation, we focus on 3 pieces out of the 9 featured in the pictorial. Each of these pieces engage with a different form of how machine learning bias might manifest. These forms are tactile, visual, and textual. The pieces grouped under tactile speculations use physical media such as fabric, food, or found objects to reflect on encounters with AI bias. The prompt that guided these projects encouraged physical and sensory investigations of machine learning, enabling the authors to think about data in tangible and situated ways. Such a project is author Catherine Reyes' piece called Touch, a soft materialization of smartphone use data. Through this piece, Catherine explored the bodily origin of computational engagement, the swipe. Catherine uses data recorded by the screen time feature of her iOS device and materialized the data through cut pieces of felt. Each piece of fabric is a visualization of the small gestures that allow us to navigate online space. Touch is a reminder of the ways bodies are always already involved in the thickness of computational systems and how they possibly generate and spread bias. Another form of AI bias is visual. The slanted speculations in this section make use of the graphic possibilities of machine learning. GAN imagery, deepfakes, and other algorithmically generated images. The projects presented in this section were prompted by an invitation to engage with these visual tools, to reinvent artifacts, and craft new narratives. One of the projects in this category is author Shariel Glukovac-Smith, Hairstyle Again. The piece is an experimental encoding of text in algorithmically generated photographs of braided hair. The algorithm used by Shariel takes in a short phrase as input and translates it into a seed. Seeds are internal coordinates within a StyleGAN2 vector that allows for the discrete location of a particular section within the model. The resulting image encrypts a representation of a cultural artifact. In this particular piece, Shariel hides excerpt from American writer Audre Lorde's poem, A Woman Speaks, in views from the back of a person's head. To create the imagery, Shariel trained the GAN model on a dataset of braided hairstyles. The visual results are arresting, pushing the viewer to look closer rather than recoil from the erasure of blackness, as Audre Lorde's poem suggests. The last form of bias explored in this pictorial is textual. Textual speculations engage with the algorithmic manipulation of text. The projects in this section think of text expansively as a technology of inscription that encodes specific worldviews and particular narratives around gender, social hierarchies, human and non-human relations, and design paradigms. For instance, author Lacey Jacoby's piece, Decontextualizing Language Through Google Translate, is a prototype system that translates English into Japanese and then asks for highly specific contextual data that may alter the translation. This project stems from Lacey's realization that depending on the language, such as Japanese, Korean, or Indonesian, the natural language processing model underlying Google Translate made assumptions based on the sexuality and gender of the person spoken to. In her prototype, the system asked questions regarding the speaker's age, job titles, relationships, context in which they're speaking, and the mood of the conversation to make decisions about the appropriate level of politeness required. With this system, Lacey seeks to complicate questions of language as data. When does data work as context? And when does context work as bias? Which voices inform translation, and which voices are left out? Finally, given the complexity of language, what constitutes enough data? These works, together with the other pieces featured in the paper, engage speculatively and materially with topics of algorithmic bias. We reflected on these projects and identified strategies for slanted speculation, an approach that treats AI bias as a tool for tilting conventional encounters with machine learning. Moving away from the urge to frame interactions and systems as problems to fix, slanted speculation retains the problem in bias, not resolving it, but rather tilting it so that it can cast a different light, generate different encounters. There is still much to explore in this regard, and we hope that these projects encourage designers to consider the bias of machine learning as another possible instrument to investigate not only what AI systems could be, but also reformulate what they already are. Thank you for listening.